former Sixers pre- and post-game analyst Marc Jackson, who joins us to talk some NBA on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. As we're getting ready for the playoffs, Mark, we got a lot going on. And by the way, did you happen to see any of the Laker game last night? Did you see or hear or just hear about it?
Yeah, it was. I kind of glanced over it a few bits. I'm going channel searching for different games, but to me, you can say the Lakers played great, but if you look at that game, that's not the case. You would just say the Spurs played worse.
The Spurs, yeah, it was almost as if Popovich said, I am not going to allow you to lose this game. I know that's your intention here, but we're not going to play your game, and we're going to play worse so that you have to win this game. The NBA, who was trying to penalize teams for resting players, but seemingly isn't doing anything for teams that are egregiously – I know the Sixers, what they did, got a lot of publicity, but they weren't egregiously sitting players. They just didn't have very good players. The Lakers are egregiously benching guys in an effort to not win. That's a problem, is it not?
That is a huge problem. And the NBA and, Adam Sterling has been very good with addressing certain things, but that looks bad. And if you are a Laker fan, especially with the history they have, you have to take offense to that because that's just flat out ridiculous. And as a coach, I know you got to take orders from higher up, but as a coach, when you have to say enough's enough.
Yeah, if you're, Walton there, he's and look, isn't it late in the year when you want to look at your young players? Let's see what you got. Go out there and play. He's sitting his young players. He has Meta world peace out on the floor late in the fourth quarter of a game. Like, I know Meta had a nice career and everything, but you know what he can do. Why are you playing a 37-year-old guy in the fourth quarter of a game? It seemingly is just an egregious way to try to lose a basketball game.
Yeah, it's not a good look. And I think it's a black eye. There's so many things like that. Well, Popovich was the original starter with sitting players or resting players. Then everybody else followed suit. Now you got teams purpose not going to understand if you're not making the playoffs. You have a 12, 13-year veteran on your team. You want to rest for the following season. I understand that. But when you're purposely sitting your young guys, that's just flat-out blasphemy. I mean, that's just horrible. I mean, you're sitting your young guys, and you got, like we said, you have Meta out there. Wouldn't you want to see what your young guy can do to see if this guy can continue to be part of our future? If he is, how much can we count on him? Let's see how much he fight when the chips are down. But no, we're just going to rest you. Rest you for what?
Right.
Marc Jackson with us, Sixers pre and post for CSN. So, Mark, what can be done? Can the NBA step in?
I don't think you can, because if you step in and say, okay, this tanking thing is not, we want you to stop. So in that case, then people start making up injuries. Well, you have a sprained ankle or a bum thumb or shoulder or lower back issues. Then people can always make up stuff. But, if the only way to make a change, if two things, you kind of change the schedule a little bit where you make the season a little bit longer, so you don't have to play back-to-back. That's one. That'll help with resting guys. Two, when it comes to people purposely losing, maybe change the draft, the way teams draft. I've heard the people saying, what about if all the teams that finish in the top 16 or the top 14 get the same amount of ping pong balls going into the draft lottery prospect? With that stop tanking. So I've heard as much as that. But, it'd be a bummer to see a team who barely misses out, like if Charlotte doesn't make the playoffs and then end up getting a 1 seed. That would probably hurt. So I don't know what's the answer. Is it a quick fix? Is it something that you can try to maneuver things and change things around? I just think people are always trying to find loopholes to do what they want.
See, Mark, I actually think that to help fix all this, because losing has been incentivized in the NBA and a lot of sports where if you lose, it benefits your team more because you get a better draft choice. Where that Charlotte, if they don't make the playoffs, should be rewarded for the fact that they weren't trying to lose games. So they should get more ping pong balls than, say, the Lakers would, who are the worst team. You should be incentivized to win, and that your young players, as the season goes on, get better, and that you want to continue them to get better. So the more wins you get, the more ping pong balls you would get.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
I got a question. So
Sure.
Is that just for everyone who doesn't make the playoffs?
Right, so if you're the 9 seed, in the East and the West, the 2 9 seeds, the better of the two would get the most ping pong balls, and then the next 9 seed would get the next most ping pong balls. Then the 2 10s, then down the line. The worst 2 teams would get the least amount of ping pong balls. This way, teams would always be trying to win and make moves to make their teams better in season and play the young players. And, young players sometimes get better as the year goes. Dario Saric, not as good in the first half. Second half, he starts to play better. But then teams would say, well, I don't want Dario playing better, so we're going to sit him a little bit. You want him to play. You should be incentivizing winning. So you might not be one of the top 8 teams, but maybe on the 11th best team. And now I can get another player to add to me so you're not stuck in the middle.
All right, but here's my question. Here's something for you.
Yeah.
So what's to stop the teams that's in the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th position that's saying, you know what? Yeah, we're going to make the playoffs, but you don't have a high possibility of winning it. So let's tank so we fall and try to fall between 9 and 10. So then you know what I mean? So
I can, but I would ask you then, like, how much for a franchise just making the play? Like, if you're the 5, 6, 7 seed, does the ownership, like the money that you make off of that, does that supersede maybe being a 10th seed and getting a better draft choice?
That may be an option. That might be an option, but we know some teams who've been.
And here's one thing, Mark. In this instance, okay, maybe a team is tanking a game here and a game there late in the year, like the 7 seed would rather be out. Isn't that a better situation than a team tanking a full 82-game season?
I agree with you 100% on that and here's the other part of it. Nowadays when people get drafted, majority of the time they drafted on potential, not necessarily on what they have done to prove they deserve to be drafted as high as they are. So that might prevent teams from drafting the young guys as much instead of maybe looking to draft more of the more finished, polished upperclassmen instead of experimenting and grabbing some of these European players who they know they want to send back to Europe for 2-3 years. This might encourage them to pick somebody. If they are going to pick Europe, pick somebody like Dario Saric, who's playing in the top leagues in Europe in the last few years, who's proven himself, instead of you picking the 18-year-old guy who plays in the 3rd division in Serbia, who's never played in EuroLeague basketball.
Right.
You're going to stack 2-3 years. So that could stop a lot of issues.
Marc Jackson with us. And, Mark, I do have this question for you. Have you ever been on a team where winning wasn't, say, the top objective? And is there a different message around a team like that?
Well, my only team, a real bad team like that was my first year, my rookie in Golden State. But that wasn't on purpose. We had, like I said, we had 8 significant injuries. We had to get a special exemption to sign more players because everybody was hurt. But the year before that, they had one of the highest payrolls in the NBA that year because they spent a ton of money to go to win. And then, that was the only worst team I've been on. But they didn't start off going that way. It's just we had a lot of major injuries. So I've never been on a team where they was just losing on purpose. I've never been part of an organization like that. Thank God.
Do you think teams are doing this now because there is just more information out there? And the fans, Mark, you're around the Sixers a lot. You do the pre and the post game. You see how the fans are. They have almost accepted it. They've embraced this thought of we want more ping pong balls.
Yes, I agree. The Hickey effect. The Hickey effect. A lot of teams feel as though if we can get the number 1 pick or number 2 pick, we can maybe get us a LeBron. We maybe can get us a Kevin Durant. So let's lose and let's get that staple kind of player, that franchise changer. And if that requires us to tank, then let's tank. If that requires us to tank for 2-3 years, we can get 2 or 3 players of that magnitude, and let's do it. After a while, fans get restless. The media who covers the local teams should be getting restless and put pressure on them. But that's the overall goal that some teams try to do.
because the fans have almost figured out, Mark, that if you are the 5, 6, 7, 8 seed, that realistically you're not winning the NBA championship. Statistically speaking, those teams have never – if you're not the 1 or 2 or maybe the 3 seed, realistically you don't have a shot.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, that's why when we go back to your suggestion where the first few teams out of the playoffs get higher ping pong balls, I think the other end of that is instead of teams trying to tank to be horrible in the bottom, they would eventually try to lose if they don't think their franchise is good enough to actually compete. You know, some teams go on a playoff saying, oh, we know we're going to get swept. Let's try to get ready for the future. So some teams will attempt to do that. But on the other hand, it's what's your priority? What's your priority? Is your priority to tank and try to get that superstar, or is your free agency now with the new CBA? It's hard for these major superstar athletes to leave their teams because they leave a boatload of money on the table also.
Mark, what's more of an issue, sitting superstars or tanking?
I believe the tanking is worse. And the reason why I say that is, let's not necessarily talk about the superstars. Let's not talk about Durant or San Antonio, Tony Parker. Let's talk about people who may not be the top of the cream of the crop. Let's talk about a Dario Saric, who's played 3 straight years of basketball without a rest. And as we know, I've been part of these European ball clubs where their mindset and the way they focus on training and getting ready is not necessarily for the benefit of the athlete. They think a lot of teams, especially in my experience, think if we run them into the hole, then they'd be better because they'd be better in shape. You know, that's the mindset a lot of those teams have. So Dario Saric is one where he could maybe this year could have got benefited from sitting a week or so of getting rest because he played 3 straight years. He has a case of plantar fasciitis. That's coming from tightening the calf, tightening the ligaments in the ankles, and that could have came from him overuse of his body, from him not having proper rest. So, you know, I think that the tanking is the worst that you can do because it just hurt your ball club, but the fans who pay their hard-earned money to come see you and to come see a product where you're losing, and then if you get a high draft pick, then you raise the price of your ticket price. So it's like we sat by and watch you tank. Now that you got a high draft pick, I'm not going to mention no names, Ben Simmons, and now you're going to raise the ticket price. You know, how is that fair for the consumer?
We're spending a few minutes with Marc Jackson here on the Sports Passion 97.3 ESPN. That was nice how you didn't mention any names there. We very much enjoyed that. Let's take a look at some of the NBA games, though, of recent timing here, Mark. And what's your take on then the Cavs whipping the Celtics last night? Mike brought that up in the open. What kind of message was sent there?
Well, you see, Kyrie, Kevin Love, and LeBron wasn't rested that game, was
it? No, and that was a back-to-back, right? That was a back-to-back where they had been 1-9 on the road in back-to-backs, and there was so much talk about this is for the 1 seed, and LeBron said, you know, don't be asking. I'm not the guy to be asking about a regular season game. I've been in the finals 7 straight times. Get out of my face. And then they showed them who was boss last night.
Yeah, they did. I don't know if you've been following the Cavs last couple of weeks. And me, I love this game of basketball. I love talking about it. I love watching it. I just love breaking it down. So I'll watch as many games from the 76ers to the Lakers to San Antonio to Cleveland. I watch as many games as possible. But following the Cleveland Cavaliers the last 3-4 weeks, they just seem a little disinterested. They seem like a lot of confusions going on during the games. And I know they're depending on that switch to be able to turn it on in the playoffs. But I'll tell you this. Watching that game last night, they wanted to prove a point. You know, especially when LeBron blocked the shot, then he ran up in the stands smacking high fives with the Boston fans. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
That was sending a message that we are still the defending champs and we're not going nowhere.
Yeah, he blocks the guy with like 2 hands. Basically, they come down, he's high-fiving everybody, shaking their hands. It was great. You know, LeBron basically last night was like, look, I'll flip this switch anytime I feel like it. Don't poke the bear here. Because he was still on the court last night, Mark, with like a 20-plus point lead in the fourth quarter. And there was a lot of talk that would be a game that LeBron could have rested.
Exactly. But we all know he didn't rest that game. So I thought it was rather funny when when it's time to start turning on, and with such few games left in the season, them going into playoff mood. That one seed is important. I mean, LeBron could say, and LeBron is a very bright athlete. He's probably a generation as far as the mindset he's bringing, not just to basketball, but to the business world. But he could say, "Oh, don't come to me about regular season." But let's be honest, he know that one seed is important. But he know as LeBron, as the best player in the world, one of the greatest players that ever set foot on a basketball court, that no matter if he's the 1 seed or the 8 seed, it's going to be hard to put him out. And especially with that team they don't put around him, it's going to be difficult to beat them, even for the people who, the Golden State Warriors fans who think with Kevin Durant, they could dethrone the champions. It's going to be hard. But LeBron, he sent the message last night. I love the way they went to Kevin Love early, even though he missed the shots, but they were trying to establish him early, getting ready for playoffs. They're on a mission, and they're trying to do things to get themselves ready for make a run in the playoffs.
Yeah, one thing on that, though, Mark, you got to wonder if LeBron knows in the back of their mind, yes, the 1 seed's important, but the 1 year Atlanta won like 62 games. They were the 1 seed, and Cleveland went in there and was it Miami or Cleveland just swept through them. So I think they still know they have that look in the game last night that they still have that feeling of invincibility when the lights get shined the brightest.
Oh, yeah, of course, because they're used to it. Boston is, first of all, Brad Stevens has done an amazing job with that team this year. They'll even be fighting for number 1 seed. He's doing an amazing job, and for me, he's my coach of the year. To me, he is. But that is still LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love. I mean, that's still the big three. Let's not forget the 3 guys that headline that team and the team they put around them. So it's still, I don't care like you said, I don't care what seed they are, it's going to be hard for anyone to try to defeat them, whether they got the home court or they're the away team.
So, Mark, I asked you earlier about being on a team or if you'd ever been on a team where winning wasn't like the main objective. How about the flip side of that, being on a team like Cleveland where you're just sort of waiting for the playoffs to start? What's that situation like? Have you been on a team like that?
Mike, when I was with the Minnesota Timberwolves, we had broke the franchise record for the most wins for the franchise in the season, and then we lost to the Lakers in the playoffs first round. We really thought that was our year. We really thought we had the pieces. We really thought we can give Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant a big run for their money. We thought we had their number, and they knocked us out, man. And that hurt a little bit because we thought we had everything. We thought we had the ultimate all-star. We thought we had the great contributing parts to help him. We had a great coach, got rest his soul, and Flip Saunders, who had a game plan every game to help you, to put you in position to win. So we thought we had everyone's number that year, and we lost. But for us, it was like we know we're going to do good in the playoffs. That's just our main focus was staying healthy and just finishing games strong.
Looking forward to these playoffs, but Durant's supposed to be coming back. He's now cleared. They've been playing really well without Kevin Durant. So it almost seems like Golden State has reaffirmed that it's a 2-team playoff field. Are you buying that somebody can beat one of those teams, Golden State or Cleveland?
On the East, I think, we're talking a lot. Washington hasn't been playing good since All-Star break. But before then, he was probably one of the best teams in the league, best transitioning teams in the league. The pieces and that Toronto Raptors had added to their roster is something to a sight to behold. That's going to really push Cleveland to the limits. But I really think at the end of the day, I think Cleveland will manage to come out of the playoffs and the East Division as the champions. But I don't think they're going to walk through it. I think they're going to have some incredible battles that they have to be ready to compete and go against. In the West, Golden State is there, but listen, as long as you got Greg Popovich, as long as you got Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin, it's going to be hard. And James Harden, with the style of play, they oppose a different style of play from every team in the league. It's going to be hard. Both teams are going to struggle a little bit, but I think at the end, I think Cleveland will come out a little bumped and bruised out of the East. But Golden State, to me, has more of a difficult challenge because of the amount of good teams in the West. And not just that, because of Kevin Durant missing so many weeks. Now coming back less than a week before the end of the regular season, Golden State's been playing great basketball without him. When they had him, they started to find their path. But him being out for over a month will set this team back in chemistry a little bit. And it's going to take some time for them to get going and to get the engine revving again. They just better hope that first round is not against a team that's running on all cylinders, or they're going to have a real difficult time just because the chemistry is going to be off.
Mark, before we let you go, I got to ask you, how did the Sixers give up 141 points to the stinking Nets the other night? Is that just them running out of gas at this stage of the season?
You know, with them losing so many players, with them playing some games with 7 or 8 guys and about 2 or 3 guys that's on 10 days, you know, they might be running on fumes. Dario is. I know he's running on fumes. TJ is. You know, Holmes seems to be coming out and doing his thing night in and night out, proving himself. I just think guys are running on fumes right now because they're asked to play big minutes that they haven't been asked to play the whole season. So I just think they ran against Brooklyn that was revving hard. They had all their RPMs driven high, and Sixers was limping in there and just had a bad performance defensively and giving up so many points. But it is not a good look to give up that many points to one of the worst teams in the NBA offense.
It was like 81 points they gave up in a half to that team. I mean, Jesus, oh, my Lord. Bad showing there down the stretch, but it's been a fun season. We'll see what happens in the offseason. We got NBA playoffs coming up. Looking forward to that. Marc Jackson from Sixers pre- and post-game live as the Sixers take on the Bulls tonight, by the way. Listen to the game on 97.3. Always good talking basketball with you, Mark. Take care, pal.
Yes, sir. Enjoy your day. Great talking to you.